Hello everyone, I am Dr. Meet from Department of English, Government National College, Sirsa. I am here with the second video on It's Question Time by J.V. Narlikar. Now let's begin with a quick recap of what we did in the previous lecture. In the first part of the chapter, Narlikar talks about, rather he proves to us that education system kills curiosity and spirit of questioning. It promotes conformism. He cites an incident from the autobiography of his teacher, Fred Hoyle, where he recounts how he was punished for being curious. The teacher told him that a particular flower has 5 petals, but he found a flower of the same kind with 6 petals. The teacher was not used to questioning, so he punished him. Indian education system is not much different. The students are encouraged to memorize the question answers. It does not matter whether they understand the subject matter or not. Our education system encourages rote learning and cramming. He also recounts a personal experience. He wanted to encourage questioning in younger generation, so he thought of an interesting scheme. After his public lecture, people wanted to have his autographs. But he would announce that anyone who wants his autographs should send him a postcard with a question. He would write back and his answer would carry his signatures, so that would be his autograph. But teachers in different schools started dictating questions to their students, made them send him postcards. He also started getting textbook questions that a teacher could have answered in the class. So he had to discontinue the scheme. He realized that spontaneous questions by students are not encouraged. There can be many reasons for that. The teacher does not have confidence to answer the questions. Questions may not be related to the subject matter. The classes are very big and it's not possible for the teacher to respond to each and every student. There is shortage of time, but the end result is that curiosity takes a back seat. यहाँ पे हमने लास्ट लेक्चर जो था वो ख़त्म किया था एंड आई स्टार्ट विद द लास्ट स्लाइड जो हमने की थी. Whatever the reason, curiosity takes a back seat well behind memorization of the subject matter. So वो कहता है कारण कोई भी हो सकते हैं जैसे उन्होंने पीछे बताया उनमें से कोई भी. But the final result क्या है कि जो curiosity है that takes backseat to have or assume secondary position or become less important. So what becomes more important is memorization, चीजों को याद करना, and curiosity that should be the key ingredient or the driving force behind learning. It becomes less important and sometimes is missing from the process. We may proudly assert that this is the way our ancestors acquired knowledge, which was orally learnt, memorized and then passed on to next generation. अब हम में से कुछ लोग कह सकते हैं कि जी हमारे जो ancestors थे, forefathers, पूर्वज, they acquired knowledge in this way. कि एक जो जनरेशन थी जो उसके पास नॉलेज थी वो मेमोराइज करके नेक्स्ट को पास करती थी ओरली एंड देन उनको बिकॉज रिटन जब राइटिंग नहीं थी और रिटन नॉलेज के मीडियम नहीं थे उस टाइम पे उनको याद करना ही पड़ता था ताकि वो जो नेक्स्ट जनरेशन है उसको पास ऑन करे और नेक्स्ट जनरेशन भी उसको मेमोराइज करती थी एंड देन दिस इज हाउ इट वाज पास्ड ऑन. दिस इज द वे द वेदास वर हैंडेड डाउन फ्रॉम जनरेशन टू जनरेशन. इसी ढंग से जो वेद थे वो एक जनरेशन से दूसरी जनरेशन तक पास ऑन हुए. इट आल्सो टेल्स why we do not have wealth of written knowledge of ancient origin as in the West or in China. Or this also hints at something or explains that why India does not have written knowledge of ancient origin. We do have a knowledge of ancient origin, but written knowledge of ancient origin, though West has written knowledge of ancient origin and so has China, but India lacked in that, and that may be one of the reasons he says. Rote learning, however, freezes the knowledge base in its tracks. There is no evolution, no addition. It discourages creativity and originality. Now, rote learning means memorizing, learning by memorizing, जिसे रट्टा मारना आप कहते हैं. However, freezes the knowledge base in its tracks. Now इसका negative impact क्या है? This is what he's trying to explain. That its impact is that, or its effect is that knowledge base is frozen. Freeze आप समझते हैं जम जाना ना, like if we tell somebody कई बार हम game खेलते हैं and say okay freeze, so that after that person does not move. So similarly, if knowledge base is frozen, it freezes. It means there is no movement further and there is no evolution. Evolution means, of course, development or advancement. The knowledge stays where it was. जहाँ थी वहीं रह जाती और जैसे हमने उसको learn किया वैसे की वैसे हम उसको pass on कर देते हैं, कोई उसमें addition नहीं होती है. और evolution और या advancement और development का मतलब है कि हर पर्सन से या हर जनरेशन से नेक्स्ट तक कोई एडिशन होके आगे जाएगी. वो नहीं होती है जब हम रोट लर्निंग पे जाते हैं. जो आप उससे क्या एक्सपेक्ट किया जाता है कि जो आपने सुना उसी को आपने याद किया, उसी को आगे पास ऑन किया. कोई उसमें एडिशन नहीं हुई, कोई डेवलपमेंट नहीं हुई, कोई एवोल्यूशन नहीं हुआ, कोई एडवांसमेंट नहीं हुई. एंड इट डिस्करेजेस क्रिएटिविटी एंड ओरिजिनलिटी, क्योंकि आपने उसी को याद करना होता है. यू हैव टू रिमेंबर दैट, मेमोराइज दैट and reproduce that. So therefore you are not allowed to be creative or original. You cannot add anything to it. So it discourages creativity and discourages originality. I recall an incident when I was in 10th standard. I had found on my own a new and short proof of Pythagoras theorem. I gave that proof in half yearly examination. अब वो अपना एक पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस बताते हैं that when he was in 10th standard, Pythagoras theorem you all must have read or done in your school. So he said that of course you have to prove the theorem. There are certain questions set on that pattern, and he says I found a new way and a short one also, short proof of that. And he when there was exam, half yearly exam जो स्कूल में होते हैं, तो उसने he wrote that proof, वही उन्होंने लिखा. Now what happened, my class teacher called me to say that although the proof was a good one and he was giving full marks for it, he wished to caution me against giving it in the board examination, for the examiner there may not appreciate it. Now he says that my teacher called me and he said that your proof is fine, very good, it's perfectly okay, and I am giving it full marks now, but don't write it in the final exam, in the board exam. And he meant to caution him. Caution him means warn him, because he says कि बोर्ड एग्जाम में अगर आप लिख के आओगे तो हो सकता है जो टीचर है वहाँ पे, जो वैल्यूएटर है, जो उसको चेक कर रहे हैं, जो एग्जामिनर है, that he may not or she may not appreciate it, means he may not understand or value it, and then of course you may end up getting a 0 for the question. I still recall his words. If the examiner sees an unfamiliar diagram, he will give you 0 for it without bothering to read the proof. The reason? He has very little time to look at the answer box. So he says that I still remember उन्होंने मुझे क्या कहा था, वो मुझे आज भी याद है. That if examiner sees an unfamiliar, familiar which is not familiar, जो जानी पहचानी नहीं है, वो डायग्राम अगर देखेंगे तो he or she will say okay ये तो क्या बना दिया बच्चे ने, गलत, and वो proof को भी नहीं पढ़ेंगे, और without reading that proof he or she will give you 0 for it. Now this is how and there is a reason for it. He explains it. The teacher has a reason for it because he has very little time to look at the answer book. उनके पास समय बहुत कम होता है. He has already talked about the time, shortage of time they have. So they have a strategy that there should be a set pattern of how the answers should be written. Most of you are also taught that okay, this is how you should write your paper, and first write this, the diagram in this way, and this is how you should explain things. So of course one reason is that your answer should be systematic, so that it is easily accessible to the evaluator. But other reason is that it has to be on expected lines, and they just skim through it, and okay, if it is fine on expected lines, then you'll get marks, or otherwise, if it is, as he said, it's something unfamiliar, then you may end up getting 0 for it. This time crunch is often held as the prime culprit. With syllabi overloaded with subject matter, harassed teachers addressing huge classes, and many outside interruptions like burns and holidays, who has time to answer pupils' questions or to encourage a new line of thinking? Now, he paints a picture of what is the situation in education, or teacher versus students. He says there is generally it is cited that crunch means shortage of, and money crunch means shortage of money, time crunch means shortage of time, is often held a prime means main or major, culprit means one who is responsible for a problem or who has done something wrong, मुजरिम जिसे हम कहते हैं. तो इस सिचुएशन में हम किसको मुजरिम ठहराएंगे, कौन गलती कर रहा है, कौन जिम्मेदार है इस चीज के लिए, who is responsible for all this, and generally cited reason is time crunch, कि टीचर के पास समय नहीं है. With syllabi overloaded with subject matter इतना है, इतना पढ़ाने को है. Then teachers are addressing huge classes. उसने पहले भी इस चीज को मेंशन किया कि क्लासेस बहुत बड़ी हैं, नंबर ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स बहुत ज्यादा है, 1-to-1 कम्युनिकेशन हो नहीं सकती, and many outside interruptions like burns and holidays. You must have noticed during your session also, for example, at a particular day you cannot reach your college or school because of a particular strike, or there is a burn, or then something else happens. The teacher is not able to meet his or her class. So all this is happening, and he has or she has to manage teaching with all this. So then they are not left with much time. So who has time to answer people's questions, means students' questions, or to encourage a new line of thinking, that otherwise this is what we are supposed to do, teachers are supposed to do, especially in higher education, where we are supposed to produce, not only pass on knowledge, but also it should be the place where knowledge should be created, जहाँ पे नई knowledge create होनी चाहिए, but टीचर के पास इतना टाइम ही नहीं है कि वो आपके आंसर्स क्वेश्चंस को पूरा एड्रेस कर सकें या एक नए ढंग की सोच को एनकरेज कर सकें. It will take a long time for our lawmakers to get their priorities right and encourage more schools, smaller classes, and syllabi that emphasize comprehension rather than excess of information. Now, he says that as on today, जो आज की situation है, the priorities of our lawmakers, of course, our legislators or our leaders or our administrators, उनकी priorities जो हैं वो कुछ और हैं. Priorities means preferences, and education is certainly not one of them, and it would take a long time for them to realize कि उनकी preferences क्या होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि जिस भी नेशन ने प्रोग्रेस किया है, उस नेशन ने अपने ह्यूमन रिसोर्स को डेवलप करने पे बहुत जोर दिया होता है. ह्यूमन रिसोर्स क्या है, आप हैं, आपको डेवलप करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं एजुकेशन के थ्रू, एंड देयरफॉर एजुकेशन इज वन सेक्टर वेयर वी नीड टू कॉन्सेंट्रेट ऑन and spend a lot, both in time, in terms of money, as well as quality of time and the kind of talent that should be there. लेकिन कहते हैं कि आज की तारीख में तो वो जो प्रेफरेंस है वो है नहीं है, and it would take a lot of time जब ये सब चेंजेस आएंगे, और वो चेंजेस बता रहे हैं कि क्या क्या होनी चाहिए. More schools, smaller classes, and syllabi that emphasize comprehension rather than excess of information. Comprehension means understand, कि जो हमारा सिलेबस है वो इस ढंग से डिजाइन होना चाहिए, जिसका जो एम्फेसिस है, स्ट्रेस है, वो किस पे होना चाहिए, अंडरस्टैंडिंग पे, rather than information कि आपने who is who and what and names याद कर लिए, dates याद कर लिए, formulas याद कर लिए, rather than that conceptual understanding of things and processes जो है उसके ऊपर जो emphasis हो. लेकिन ये सब होने में he says अभी बहुत देर लगेगी. So what we can do, and he has his suggestion, or he suggests something. uh, Search and find. Nevertheless, given the fact that teachers will have no time in the foreseeable future, can we encourage students to be more self-reliant? Rely means depend. So self-reliant means depend on oneself. Foreseeable mean foresee का मतलब होता है when you can see beforehand, पहले से आपको कुछ नजर आ रहा है. Foreseeable जहाँ तक हम देख सकते हैं वहां तक तो वो कहता है कि हमें nevertheless फिर भी हमें आज की डेट में तो कहता है कि ये मुझे लगता है सब होना चाहिए. All these things should happen, like smaller classes and more schools and the syllabi with emphasis on understanding. All this should be, but nevertheless जैसा भी है अब सिचुएशन क्या है, that in near future, foreseeable future, जहां तक हम देख सकते हैं, teachers are not going to have much time on their hands. So can there be another option, that we can teach our students to be more self-dependent? And how? What we are expecting them to? Self-reliant means self-dependent and not needing any help from others, like here means from teachers. So can you manage without the help of teacher? Can they find answers to the questions themselves? Just finding a hidden person in a hide and seek game brings pleasure. So can searching and finding the answer to your question. So he says, क्या वो अपने सवालों के जवाब खुद ढूंढ सकते हैं? Now he's asking a question, and the question arises, then don't we need a teacher? He's talking about a particular kind of questions, कि कुछ ऐसे questions हैं, क्या वो जो students हैं वो बिना टीचर की हेल्प के ढूंढ सकते हैं? क्या हम उनको ये चीज सिखा सकते हैं कि कुछ इस ढंग के क्वेश्चन हो जो वो खुद ब खुद अपने आप ढूंढ ले? And he says this can be a very exciting experience for the students, and he takes an example of hide and seek. आपने सबने खेली होगी जिसमें a person hides and we try to a person tries to find that person. Hide and seek. Hide का मतलब छुपना, seek का मतलब ढूंढने की कोशिश करना, trying to find out. So here again there is an answer hidden somewhere and you are going to find out. अब जब देखिए आप किसी को ढूंढ रहे होते हैं, तो अगर मैं आपको बताती हूँ कि वो वहां छुपी हुई है या छुपे हुए हैं, तो शायद आपको उतना मजा नहीं आता है. लेकिन अगर आप खुद यू ट्राई टू स्पेकुलेट कि कहाँ कहाँ कोई छुपा हो सकता है, क्या रीजन हो सकता है, यहाँ क्या क्या छुपने की जगह है, वो पर्सन कहाँ छुप सकता है, एंड फाइनली यू आर एबल टू लोकेट दैट पर्सन, तो आपको बहुत मजा आता है. यू आर वेरी एक्साइटेड. इट्स अ थ्रिलिंग एक्सपीरियंस. सो ही सेज finding an answer can be similarly a very, very exciting and thrilling experience for the children. If the school has databases like encyclopedias, who is who, and books specially written with answers to frequently asked questions, students may browse and locate the answer themselves. If the school has databases like encyclopedias is a work, or we can say a big book that contains information on all branches of knowledge. Like example, in general encyclopedia you can go and find like reference to a particular country if you want to find, or a piece of crockery, or a dish, or a piece of clothing, or a kind, all these kinds of information, and they are entered generally in alphabetical order. Or there are encyclopedias on particular subjects like encyclopedia of literature, language, linguistics, mathematics, chemistry, politics, economics. They can be of plants. So they can be. So it's a, we can say it's a storehouse of information. So he's talking basically about information, that if we have those databases like encyclopedia where you can find this kind of information, that which kind of flower grows where, or which country has what is the location of a particular country, वहाँ कितने लोग रहते हैं, कैसे लोग रहते हैं, इस तरह की जो information है वो वहाँ मिल जाए. Then students may browse, they can go and browse, they can try to find out, देखेंगे, ढूंढेंगे and locate the answer. जैसे आपने उस person को hide and seek में ढूंढा, finally they would locate the answer themselves, खुद वो ढूंढ लेंगे. But if this kind of databases are, with internet growing in its coverage and access to it becoming cheaper, the networked PC can be an invaluable tool in this quest. Even with 6 decades behind me, I experience a childlike thrill whenever my search leads me to a website with much sought for information. PC means, of course, personal computer, all of you know. Quest means a long search or an attempt to find or achieve something. किसी चीज़ को ढूंढने की या पाने की जब हम कोशिश करते हैं, खास करके अगर वो लंबी खोज हो जाती है, सर्च हो जाती है, उसको हम क्वेस्ट कहते हैं. So he says that internet की availability जो है वो बढ़ रही है. He's talking about when he was writing this essay, and it's becoming cheaper also, यानी कि सस्ता हो रहा है. That means it is becoming accessible to the common person. And a networked PC, you can understand कि personal computer which has internet connection and is connected to other information sources can be invaluable. Invaluable means जिसकी value हम नहीं लगा सकते हैं. So tool in the quest, B.Sc जिसे हम कह देते हैं कि it can be a very important tool in this quest, in this search for answers. So he is suggesting that computers with internet connections can prove very helpful in this search for answers. If we want our children or our students to find answers for themselves, internet and computer can be वो काफी helpful prove हो सकते हैं. Even with 6 decades behind me, कहते हैं कि 6 decade means of course a period of 10 years, I experience a childlike thrill when my search leads me to a website with much sought information. Sought, childlike means a very simple or innocent pleasure. जो बच्चे को जिस ढंग से excitement, जैसे वो कोई नई चीज़ देखता है तो उसको जो excitement feel होती है, वैसे ही कहते हैं मुझे आज भी feel होती है. कब? Thrill means excitement. Sought means seek का second form है. अगेन किसी चीज़ को ढूंढने या पाने की कोशिश. कहते कि जब बहुत जिस चीज़ को मैं इंफॉर्मेशन को ढूंढने की कोशिश कर रहा होता हूँ और फाइनली वो मुझे कोई ऐसी वेबसाइट पे ले जाती है जहाँ पे वो मुझे इंफॉर्मेशन मिल जाती है, तो आज भी इवन व्हेन आई हैव लिव्ड फॉर 6 decades, दैट मीन्स 60 साल से ऊपर का हो गया हूँ, तब भी मुझे बच्चे की जैसी जो थ्रिल है, I can still feel that excitement. So what he is trying to say, that it can be a very exciting experience for every student and child if he or she is allowed to find answers for himself or herself. But this will work provided the school authorities create a time slot for such a search and find exercise, just as they create a time slot for games and PT. So वो कहते हैं कि वो सजेस्ट तो कुछ कर रहे हैं, पर वो भी करने के लिए, उसको सक्सेसफुल होने के लिए भी कुछ कंडीशन है. प्रोवाइडेड मीन्स ऑन द कंडीशन दैट, और वो कंडीशन क्या है कि जो स्कूल अथॉरिटीज़ हैं वो एक कोई टाइम स्लॉट मीन्स एन अलॉटेड प्लेस और टाइम, कोई पीरियड, यानी कि जैसे कि पीटी का लगाया जाता है फिजिकल ट्रेनिंग, तो जैसे आपके स्पोर्ट्स का है या म्यूजिक का पीरियड है, वैसे ही एक टाइम स्लॉट जो है वो इस काम के लिए, और वो काम को क्या नाम दे रहे हैं, वो सर्च एंड फाइंड एक्सरसाइज, उसके लिए एक क्लास जो है अलॉट की जाए. ड्यूरिंग दिस पीरियड the students are let loose in the library and information center of the school to find for themselves the answers to their questions. For they do still have questions despite our education system, as I have found whenever I engage them in a question answer log. I have learned a lot myself by doing so. So he says इस पीरियड में होगा क्या, वो बताते हैं कि उनका क्या आइडिया है इस क्लास के बारे में, और वो ये है कि जो कॉलेज की सॉरी स्कूल की, बिकॉज इज टॉकिंग अबाउट स्कूल एजुकेशन, जो स्कूल की लाइब्रेरी है और उसके साथ एक और उन्होंने कहा है इंफॉर्मेशन सेंटर, बिकॉज आल्सो टॉकिंग अबाउट पीसी, कंप्यूटर्स एंड इंटरनेट। वहां पे आपने स्टूडेंट्स को खुला छोड़ दिया। लेट लूज मीन्स जस्ट अलाउ समबडी टू गो एंड मूव फ्रीली, कि जाओ बेटा, गो एंड फाइंड फॉर योरसेल्फ। क्या करने आए हैं? सर्च एंड फाइंड। They are given access to computer with internet or the books in the library. There may be encyclopedias or the books on particular subjects. So go and find answers for your questions. खुद जाइए और ढूंढिए उनमें. And as I have found, he says, for they do still have questions despite our education system. He says कि बार बार वो पहले कह रहे हैं कि जो हमारा एजुकेशनल सिस्टम है वो जो है हमारी क्यूरियोसिटी को खत्म कर देता है बच्चों की, या उनकी जो क्वेश्चनिंग की स्पिरिट है उसको डिस्करेज करता है। सो दे स्टॉप आस्किंग क्वेश्चंस, बट इन स्पाइट ऑफ ऑल दिस, इसके बावजूद भी students do have questions. उनके मन में क्वेश्चन आते हैं, as I have found whenever I engage them in a question answer log like dialogue और discourse में भी, कि जब उनके साथ किसी में डिस्कोर्स में एंगेज होता हूँ, बातचीत में, क्वेश्चन आंसर में, मुझे दिखा है, मैंने आई हैव नोटिस्ड इट कि उनके मन में अभी भी बहुत से क्वेश्चन हैं. दे स्टिल वांट टू हैव आंसर्स टू देयर क्वेश्चंस. सो देयरफॉर दिस इज द होप ही हैज, कि अभी भी क्योंकि सवाल बचे हुए हैं तो यहाँ शायद उनकी होप है. एंड आई हैव लर्नड अ लॉट बाय माई सेल्फ बाय डूइंग सो, कि तो मैंने खुद भी बहुत कुछ ऐसे सीखा है. एंड इफ वी अलाउ आवर स्टूडेंट्स टू फाइंड आंसर्स फॉर देमसेल्व्स, अगर वो खुद अपने आप अपने क्वेश्चंस के जवाब ढूंढने की कोशिश करेंगे, they may enjoy that I think learning experience more. So that's it. I think यहाँ तक ही था, and I hope all of you have questions and all of you try to find answers to those questions. उनको कभी दबाना नहीं उन questions को, and all the best with your search and find exercise. Thank you. Thank you. And next video is going to be on next chapter, that is an interview with Dr. Christian Bernard.